It's been 5 long months since Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Following an anonymous tip to authorities, a volunteer search party in Mexico was deployed. The Mexico-based group Buscando Corazones, which translates to Looking for Hearts, is a volunteer collective of relatives and citizens who tirelessly search remote desert areas for the remains of missing or abducted persons. Now, the tip claimed Nancy was in a shallow grave located in a secluded area near the Nogales border.
Somebody's not going to carry a body, clear across the desert or anything like that. So they're usually going to drive to an area that is fairly secluded, but, that there's not going to be too much suspect that they're out there.
Now, the Mexican search party hasn't been in contact with local authorities in Arizona. Nogales police often accompany the search group, and they've learned some techniques for finding unmarked graves like burn marks or uneven soil. Now, they've uncovered 25 unmarked graves so far with their search and plan to continue searching the area. Now, those 25 unmarked graves have not been confirmed yet to hold the body of Nancy Guthrie, but Dr. Daniel Westcott, the director of Forensic Anthropology Center at Texas State University, joins us now to talk about this. Mr. Westcott, thank you so much for joining me. Now look, we are 5 months into this case now, and this is a very interesting tip that authorities have received. A tip where they believe it's substantive of a full-on investigation in the radius of the Mexican border. When you are looking for somebody that's been buried in a desert, are there any telltale signs of a grave marker or that somebody has been buried there in the first place? How do you know where to look?
Well, where you're looking is going to depend on the rest of the investigation as far as whether they have certain leads or not. If you have no idea at all, you're typically looking for, places where, you've got a fairly good access to an area, and then, usually, like some dirt roads that maybe you have to go down a few, but not very far off of that. But, somebody's not going to carry a body, clear across the desert or anything like that. So they're usually going to drive to an area that is fairly secluded, but easy, that there's not going to be too much suspect that they're out there, So that's where you would start looking. As far as what you're looking for, it kind of depends on how long the body has been buried there. So obviously you're looking for any kind of disturbed soils. If you have if there's a body that is in active decomposition, for example, they're going to be producing heat, and that heat signature could actually be picked up during in the mornings or in the evenings when the temperatures are changing. So there are things like that you could look for. Of course, what they would also be doing is doing a lot of pedestrian searches. Probably some searches with remote sensing, so like using drones, and then also canines.
So would you say that the drone technology in terms of heat seeking or cadaver dogs in this case would be a better use?
It just depends. I mean, because the thing is that sometimes you could pick stuff up with remote sensing and at least get an idea of, potential sites that then you could, run the dogs through. But I wouldn't put one over the other. I think that in some case like this, what you'd want is to be able to utilize as much as you can. I think you'd also be doing pedestrian searches as well. So
it's been speculated that she has been deceased for about 5 months now. If she is really buried out there in the desert, what condition can we expect to find the body in if they do find her at all?
Well, so it depends on how deep the body is. So the deeper the body is buried, the better the better it's going to preserve to some extent. But if in a desert situation, what you could get is a lot of drying out of the skin, so you get kind of a mummification of the skin. And then also, but you're going to have some skeletonization. You could, in some cases, you might have a completely skeletonized body, depending on, if insects have access to the body. So most of the loss of biological mass, so muscle mass and things like that, is caused by insect larvae, especially fly larvae. And so if they have access to it, that's going to make a big difference in the decomposition process.
It's been said that the investigators have found over 20 unmarked graves out there. When you're looking for one specific body in such a wide desert, is it like finding a needle in the haystack? In other words, what are the chances that they could actually recover Nancy's body if it is actually out there?
Well, that's going to depend on the rest of the investigation and how much information the law enforcement have. I mean, a lot of times, law enforcement have information where they can pinpoint, down to a very small area. And in that case, the chances are really good. If we're talking about just somewhere in the Arizona desert, then the chances are probably pretty small, because you're also, and it wouldn't be surprising that you would find lots of skeletal remains, at least in that part of the desert.
Dr. Westcott, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure, glad to help.
Our FBI sources believe that the case will eventually be solved, but investigators are hoping for a key piece of evidence to help solve the case. We were told investigators are pursuing new avenues to investigate and will hopefully solve the case sooner rather than later. They're even working with private sector partners to obtain surveillance video and generate other potential leads. And our sources say they're still hopeful the huge reward offered by the Guthrie family and the FBI will serve as an incentive for the public to help solve the case.